Hello, and welcome to the November Pelican Book Club. I'm very excited to be here tonight, and I've been looking forward to this all day. I'm looking forward to just relaxing and talking about books. Okay, so I have a few really exciting things to share with you guys. So, like I've been saying, I guess announcing for the past month at least, tonight I'm going to talk about giving books as gifts. I'm going to give you a few recommendations. So whether you have a whole bunch of book lovers on your list or even people who maybe aren't so big on reading, either way, we're going to hopefully find something that everyone will enjoy. But also I have a lot to tell you about a very exciting anthology that is coming out this month, November 26th, in fact. If you've been following me for a little bit, this past weekend I've been sharing some posts and different things about this anthology. And so you may already know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, that's okay too. You're going to find out very soon. All right, so I'm going to start off by talking about the anthology, and then I'm going to give you some book recommendations for gifts for this holiday season or for birthdays anytime during the year, really. And then at the end, we'll do a little Q&A. And at that point, if you guys want to ask for some specific recommendations for the people on your list, or if you have questions about the anthology or anything that I talk about tonight, that'll be the time to ask it. Okay, and never fear if you're joining in later. Obviously, this is sticking around my page for a while, so you can watch it anytime. And you can ask questions in the comments there, and I'll be happy to answer them. So first off, let me tell you a little bit about the anthology that's coming out soon. So back in the spring, I entered the Adventure, Sci-Fi, and Fantasy Short Story Competition. That's a mouthful. This contest was sponsored by the lovely and talented Rachel Ritchie, who I have just had the pleasure of getting to know a little bit through this whole process. And she is truly a remarkable lady. She is the author of the Chronicles of the 12 Realms trilogy. You may have seen me mention The Beauty Thief before. This is the first book in that trilogy, and I still haven't read the other two, but I'm really looking forward to it because I really enjoyed this book, and I actually recommended it to you guys, I guess back in the summer or whenever it was that I read it. So she is the author of those. They are good, clean, young adult fantasy fiction. So I'll mention her books again when I talk about book recommendations for young adults, for teenagers. So she's also a book designer, and she designed the cover for the Crux Anthology. And that's the anthology we're going to be talking about. It releases on November 26th. So all total, we have 16 outstanding adventure stories in this anthology. These come from 16 different writers from around the world, which I think is really cool. It's not like these are just people from the US. We've got people from all over. And so that's really exciting. There are, as the title of the short story contest would tell you, we've got sci-fi stories, we've got fantasy stories, but we also have some stories that are a little bit of a crossover between the two. In fact, Rachel's story, The Forever Door, is a little bit of a mashup. It's mostly science fiction, but it's a little bit of a mashup. And she told me today that her cover design for this book really inspired her story. And lucky for all of us, she's got a little prologue for this story up on her blog that she released, I think, over the weekend. So after our chat tonight, I've already got a post all lined up and ready to go here on my Facebook page, and it's going to have several links in the comments for it. So you're going to want to check that out. Make sure you scroll down to the comments, because one of those links is going to take you right to the prologue of her story, The Forever Door. Plus, another comment has a collage of pictures that inspired the characters of her story. So if you like to kind of picture what the author had in mind when she or he was writing the story, this will be a really great opportunity for you to see what she was envisioning when she wrote about Owen and the other characters. All right, so I'm actually going to read you a brief synopsis of her story. I'm very excited about this, by the way. The Forever Door follows a late 20s architect and construction worker named Owen McFadden. He and his twin sister, Juliana, spent their summers at archaeological digs in the Middle East with their favorite uncle. Juliana pursued a career in archaeology, but Owen wanted to design buildings that someday someone might admire or be in awe of in the future. Even though their paths diverged, they kept their close bond. And when Juliana stumbles upon a secret best left buried, Owen doesn't hesitate to join her on a dangerous adventure of a lifetime. But Owen has no idea what he's getting himself into. And that's where our story begins. Okay, so be sure to check out the prologue on Rachel's site. Like I said, at the end, I'll have a post with a lot of links in the comments. So you'll be able to go right to that prologue of her story. And then let me tell you a little bit, before I get into telling you about my story that is in this anthology, I want to tell you a little bit about why I even decided to enter the contest. Now, I'm actually not going to tell you the whole story because that's coming out in next week's blog post on my blog, but I'm going to tell you a couple of things. All right, so first of all, what drew me was Rachel herself. I really had just stumbled upon her and her books and, was interested, and then she was having this contest. So just reading about this lady who, is a mom, she's got a lot of responsibilities, but she's also a writer and she's published her own books. That was pretty exciting because that's what I am attempting to do, and to see someone who is a little bit further along in the journey than me was very encouraging, just to see another mom who's actually doing it. So that was the first thing that drew me. And then the fact that one of the rules for the competition was to keep all of the stories at like the, say, PG-13 level, okay? And you gotta give that 13 because, as my husband so accurately put it, sometimes you have to kill some orcs, okay? So when it comes to fantasy and sci-fi, you're gonna have, possibly some violence here and there. So you gotta kind of bump it up to that PG-13 level. But I was confident in knowing that the stories that, should I win, the stories that I would be in this book with, I would have no problem with my kids reading. And for me, that's very important. So that was the second reason that really kind of drew me to the contest in the first place. And then the third is all the proceeds for these books, they'll be available in both ebook and print version. All the proceeds go to Compassion International. And that was kind of the thing that sealed the deal for me because, I like the idea of my writing giving back in some way. And so that seemed like a pretty cool thing. So I decided that what I would do is write a short story that will be part of a much larger fantasy series that I've been world building off and on for over a year now. And that's how Aoliverel Awakened came to be. So if you were wondering how to pronounce it, there you go. Aoliverel Awakened. All right, that's the title. I won second place in the contest, and Rachel's cover, actually, she said, this was kind of funny because she told me earlier today that her cover really inspired her story. Well, her cover actually inspired me as well. And I haven't told her this, at least I don't think I have. So basically what I did is I kind of have trouble sometimes envisioning places and buildings. I have trouble envisioning my characters sometimes too, but that's not such a big deal because I don't always have to know what my characters look like. I just need to know what they're thinking. And that's a little easier for me. So, but it's usually the places and specifically buildings that really kind of slow me down sometimes when I'm writing. So what I did was I stared at her cover for this contest for a while. It's actually kind of funny. I just stared at it, and she had on there this facade of some sort of a building. I don't even know what it's supposed to be necessarily, but to me, it looked like the temple that I was trying to envision for my story. And so I looked at this picture for a while, and then I closed my eyes, and from that point on, my mind took over, and I was able to see and walk alongside my main character, Elspeth, as she went through the gates that you'll read about, through the cave that you'll read about, and then all the way to where she gets her first glimpse of this temple. And so that's really how it happened. And from there, I mean, seeing the inside of the temple really just came at that point. So I just kind of needed that little kick, I think, and her cover did that for me. So here's a brief synopsis of what my story is all about. And here you go. Elspeth has accepted her calling, fairy shepherdess. She journeys to Temple Typeum, where she must pass several trials to awaken all her power within in order to begin her training. All right, so this story is not going to actually get us to her training. She has some trials to overcome before she can even get to that point. And that's what this story is going to bring you through. I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait for Elspeth to have some readers other than me and my amazing friends who helped me when I was writing it. I actually had several of my critique partners who read it for me, and I gave them a very last minute thing. I was like, hey, I've decided to enter this. Can you read it? And they did. So anyway, I've got one more little snippet though for you before I move on to book recommendations. I am going to have a total of 5 quotes from my story that I'm going to be sharing with you guys between now and the anthology's release on November 26th. So tonight you're going to get the first one. I'm going to actually read you the quote now, but you're going to get to see the graphic with that quote that I mentioned, or in the post that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so that'll be in there too. Lots of good stuff in that post coming up. And by the way, I do have to say, Rachel is the one who designed all of the gorgeous book cover graphics and the graphics that go with the book cover. I'm not that talented. I did my own little quote graphics, but I'm not as talented as she is. Anyway, so just so we're clear on that, she did all of the amazing graphics, like the ones with the gifts that she did. She actually specifically did that for us tonight. And you'll see those again because I have a blog post coming up that will be about book gift recommendations. So I'm actually taking what we're talking about tonight and I'll be doing it in a blog post that will be put onto my blog early in December. So there you go. Now, this quote that I'm going to share tonight is part of a prophecy concerning Elspeth. And it's a much longer prophecy that I've actually got written out, but you only get a little bit of it in this story. Battles wage within the warrior, tenderness grows within the shepherdess. She who trods unclad amongst thistles, rustling not a blade of grass. So that's just a little tiny bit of the prophecy about Elspeth. All right. Now, let me tell you a little bit of what you can look forward to in the coming weeks. I know I've told you a few things as we've gone tonight. The anthology does release on November 26th. We're also going to have a pre-order, at least for the ebook. The ebook pre-order is set for November 19th. So just keep checking back here and in a couple of other places that I'm going to tell you in just a minute. You can check there for information with the links to pre-order these books, either ebook or also definitely to order on the 26th, if not before, the print version. Okay, so just keep an eye out for those links. Now this Thursday on my blog, my blog is called Logos and Mythos, I will be posting more about my reactions to seeing my name on a book cover for the first time. Spoilers, I cried. All right, and I'll also give you a few further thoughts on the anthology itself. Plus, I'll be adding some links that are coming from some of the other outstanding writers for this anthology. So that'll be this week. And then next Thursday, I'm going to have an extra special post. I'm really excited about this. This will be a chat amongst the top 3 winners for the contest. So basically, RG Rhoda R.J. Rhoda, I'm sorry I said that wrong, R.J. Rhoda, Audrey Driscoll, and I will be sipping our favorite drinks and discussing our writing, our stories in particular, and the anthology. So I'm really excited about that. You won't want to miss it. And then in the post that I mentioned earlier, I told you I had a couple of other really fun places that you guys can keep up with everything about this anthology. One more link will be for our Facebook group, where you can get to know the Crux crew a little better. I think that's so much fun. I love that Rachel came up with that. And then another link that you'll find is where you can subscribe to an email list so that we can keep you posted on all the important dates and send you links to order the Crux Anthology. I love that I read Megan's mind. Yes. So that is everything about the anthology. And now I'm going to move on to some book recommendations. Now, remember I said at the end, if you guys have any questions about the anthology, everything I've talked about with that, and also if you would like to ask for specific recommendations for someone who's on your list, then be sure to put that in the comments as well. So I'll get to those in just a minute after I kind of go over a few little just general suggestions on books for different people that you might have on your list. So I'll go through those now. And then also, like I said, if you're watching this later, hey, put your questions in the comments and I will definitely answer them. All right, so first of all, for all the ladies on your list, now I'm gonna be sort of specific in these because I didn't have any necessarily recommendation requests from anyone. So I just kind of thought broad brush what a lot of the ladies that I know would like, and men and kids. So that's kind of where we're going with this. All right, so for women, I know I love historical fiction. And two of my absolute favorite authors are Lisa C. and Susanna Kersley. If I'm saying those names wrong, I'm so sorry. I always worry about saying people's names because I know what it's like to have your name mispronounced. And so anyway, apologies if I am. So Lisa C., her book Snowflower and The Secret Fan, it was one of those books that absolutely just haunted me and stays with me. I adored it. It was excellent. She's also written Peony and Love, which I've read that one as well. That was another good one. It was a little different. And if you have questions about it, send me a message or whatever, and I'll be happy to tell you why. I did enjoy it though. Her newest one I have not read yet. And it is called The Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane, which I love that title. All right, so Susanna Kersley has written quite a few books. Her most recent is Bellwether, which I love that title as well. I have not read it yet either. But the ones that I did read of hers were The Winter Sea and The Firebird. Now, when I read The Winter Sea, I was actually at my sister's condo when I started reading it, and I read the first paragraph and I stopped and I looked at my sister and I said, oh my word, I have goosebumps. Okay, so that just goes to show that it's a really good book. I really love her writing, and The Winter Sea and The Firebird, there's some crossover. The Firebird comes later, but you don't have to have read The Winter Sea to enjoy The Firebird, but you will pick up on some things. So I would recommend you read them in that order or buy them in that order for your friends. All right. And then a couple of other genres that I thought of for women that tend to be pretty popular are just contemporary women's fiction. And one of my writer friends, Jamie Raintree, writes in that genre, and she does a great job. Her second book is actually coming out, I think soon. I can't remember. I don't know if she's posted a date on when that's coming out. But anyway, Jamie Raintree, she's a great one. And as far as romance, if you really enjoy just sweet, clean, good romance, the lady you need to follow her name is Sally Britton. She is in my Writer Moms group, and I have not read any of her books, but I know that she does mostly like kind of Regency romances, and they're all sweet and clean, and she links to a ton of other authors who write the same kinds of books. So if that's the genre you love, she is the lady to follow, because you will get a lot of recommendations from her. So highly recommend that. Sally Britton. Her last name is Britton. So, and then for the guys in your life. Okay, so I know that sometimes men aren't as big readers as women are. Sometimes, not always. But some of the things that I've seen, even guys who really aren't big into reading, really enjoy are biographies or books about particular events. Like if your guy is really into the Civil War, there are tons of books on the Civil War, of course. But also biographies have been really good. I know some that my husband really, really enjoyed was the biography on George W. Bush and Drew Brees' biography. And those were both really, really excellent books that he enjoyed. I've read Tony Dungy's biography. I actually have 2 of his books, or I guess autobiography, I should say, even if they had, ghostwriters, but I won't talk about that right now. Anyway, I've read his first one, and I haven't read the second one, but I do have it, and I really enjoyed those. Also, Tom Clancy is, hands down, that's your go-to guy book. Anything by Tom Clancy. I would not recommend I shouldn't say that. I'm just bitter. Okay, I don't really like when great series that have been written by an author for a long time, when they get passed on to someone else after that author dies. And that's what has happened with the Tom Clancy books, the Jack Ryan series. Not a huge fan of that. It's my own personal pet peeve. Plus, they may have taken a title that I really wanted to use, and I just found out about it. So there you go. There's my bitterness and a little rant. But all of the old school Tom Clancy books I highly recommend for the guys on your list if they like anything to do with spies and political, espionage type stuff, just the thriller aspect, and of course the military aspect. Those books are a lot of fun to read. And then finally, a lot of guys really like nature. And time again, I have always recommended Jack London's books for guys. I enjoy his writing, but I think that his style of writing, his man versus nature kind of themes, really resonates with guys, and they tend to really like that. So for the guys on your list, there you go. Those are my recommendations. And I'm sure, also, if you guys have some recommendations who are watching, sure, post that. Tell what you would recommend for, we've done ladies, we've done men. All right, so now let's talk about kids. All right, so first off, the YA genre is just huge. YA stands for young adult, and there are tons of young adult books out there. Now, depending on the kid you're buying for, some of that YA stuff may not be appropriate. The kids who tend to be drawn to wanting to read young adult books are still they haven't even hit the teen years. So once they hit like 11 or 12, they're starting to look at that section. And some of those books simply are not for kids that age. So that's why, and I know I've said it here before several times, but I'm going to say it again. If you have any questions about any books at all, but specifically in the YA range that you're looking for your kids or for some kids that you're buying for, and you have questions about them, feel free to send me a message. I'll be happy to help you out. If it's not a book that I've read, I'll do my best to find out about it. Because I know as parents, that's a concern, and that's something that we can't read all the books that our kids read, right? So anytime we can have a little help with that, that's always welcome. So I'll give you some recommendations now. You've already seen Rachel Ritchie's book. I showed that to you a minute ago. All right, so she has a whole trilogy, and it's the Chronicles of the 12 Realms trilogy. This is in the fantasy genre, and it would be young adult. I would recommend that. Also, by my dear sweet friend and critique partner, Kelsey Atkins. This is Finding the Light, and this is the first book of a trilogy. This is the only one that is currently out, but I really love this, so highly recommend that one. Now, the other ones I have on Kindle, and those of you who know me know that I prefer books like these so that I can hold them up and show you, but these I only have on my Kindle, so sad news. I actually really love these. They are Adela's Curse and The Wolf Prince, and I know I'm going to mess up her name. I'm going to do the best that I can. I mentioned her last month, Claire M. Benchbach. All right. Her books are so wonderful. I actually want my kids to read them as well, and they're younger than teen years, but these are just precious fantasy fairy stories that are just good writing. Literally, her prose was so beautiful, I cried when I read the prologue. Okay, so that, tells you a little something about how beautifully she writes. So I would highly recommend those. Let's see if I have any others. I'm looking at my list. Oh, also, if you've got, especially boys who are really into spies and espionage and stuff like that, I would highly recommend Jessica Joyner's books. Okay, she just released, I think it's 5 books in her series. It's the Scott McCulley, Scott McCulley Espionage Adventure series. There we go. And I really should have typed this up, but I didn't. This was me jotting things all day long as I thought of them. And now I'm paying for it trying to read my writing. But anyway, I think that kind of gets some young adult stuff. Then for middle grades, A Wrinkle in Time is a really great classic book. And of course, the new movie recently came out. I would recommend the old movie above the new movie because the old movie got the story. The new movie, however, is gorgeous. I mean, the cinematography is just amazing. The actors, the actresses, they do a great job as far as the acting goes. But the story has definitely been changed. It's not the book that was written. So just my 2 cents on that. And some other middle grade books that I would recommend. I happen to have these 2 handy, and I just grabbed these off my shelf. So Joyce Moyer Hostetter has written these books. There's actually 4 out now. The first, well, alphabetically anyway, the first one is called AIM, A-I-M. Then you have Blue and Comfort, and the 4th one is Drive. And these are historical fiction geared toward middle grade kids. They're excellent. Let's see, this would be set during, was it World War I or II? World War II. It kind of goes into detail talking about the polio epidemic, things like that, things that kids would have been facing here at home while their dads are away fighting. They're excellent books. I highly recommend those. And then, let's see, Augusta Scattergood writes some great middle grade fiction. Joe Hackle just came out with Smack Dab in the Middle of Maybe, which my kids and I are super excited about reading. And then you have your good old standards, okay? Nancy Drew, the Hardy Boys, books like that. Like, kids love mysteries, okay? So I don't care if they're old books, which I know they've got some updated versions. Kids love mysteries. They really, really do. So those are always a winner. And then if you've got kids that are they really don't want to read, and maybe I'm thinking about like some boys that I know, they just don't think that reading is very cool. You've got your graphic novels, and you've got things like, well, I hate them, but the kids love them. Captain Underpants, and what is it? Dog Man, I think, is the other series that Dave Pilkey has written, and the kids absolutely love those. Okay, and it sparks their imagination, and they laugh at all of the potty humor, and they get really drawn into it. And so that could be a good starting point for some of your kids. And then let's see, for our little ones, okay? So I mentioned this last time, thanks to a question from Eric. Our beginning readers, there's this whole huge series of, I think they're called I Can Read or whatever. Anyway, they have, like, in the corner, they have the numbers. So for each level, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, I think there's 5 or 6 levels. Those are always just a real winner when it comes to your kids who are just starting to read. So if you're not buying for your own kids, if you're buying for like grandkids or something like that, find out what level they're on and maybe buy that level, and then maybe buy some a little ahead. But what I would recommend with those is one of two things. Find out what characters they like, because a lot of these books are written based around different characters. Like they have, I don't know, I can't remember any off the top of my head. My kids are a little bit beyond that, so it's been a while, but I think I saw like Dora and like, some of those kinds of characters. So kind of find out like if there are particular characters they really like, and you can find those. They have like Clifford, who's always popular. I mean, they've probably been read Clifford books since they were tiny, so they'll recognize, stories like that. Then I also really like the classics that they have. So they have a bunch that are like Frog and Toad adventures, and I love those. And my kids did too. Like I remember them, those were some of their favorites from those kinds of books. And then for the little ones that are still being read to, or even the older ones who still enjoy getting read to, which every kid does, even when they're older, there's just something about being read to that's important, even all the way up. Even if you've got teenagers, reading together out loud those are memories right there. So, but for your little ones, golden books are always a great choice. I still have a ton of the golden books that I had when I was a kid, and my kids have read now. And then also for picture books. So I have a few I was going to show you, but there's one I don't have and I was going to mention. It's called The Lucky Star. And there are more and more of these picture books that they're just gorgeous. The illustrations are beautiful, and they're basically historical fiction in picture book form. And The Lucky Star is one that just really kind of stuck with me. I read with my kids. It was set during the Great Depression. And, I love books like that get our kids to think about someone other than themselves, and to realize that, not everyone is as fortunate as we are. And even not that long ago, things around here weren't like they are now. So I love books like that. And I think that book is actually part of a series called The Tales of Young Americans. So you might want to look that up. I kind of ran out of time today, so I didn't get a chance to look up and see what other books are in that series, but definitely check that out if you're interested in those kinds of picture books. And then just a couple more that I'll show you, because I love to show books. So this is, let me show you the first one. Yeah. God Gave Us You. Okay, and God Gave Us Two. All right, so we got this one. I can't remember when we got these. I think it was my sister who gave, or brother and sister-in-law who gave me these. And we got this one for our oldest, and then when we had the second one, there you go. It's all about Mama Bear and Papa Bear having baby number 2. And so that's a cute series of books for little ones. And then this, Jake the Ballet Dog. Okay, you guys know that I love animals. So anything with dogs or cats, I'm gonna like. And this happens to also have the Nutcracker Ballet, which happens to be one of my favorites. So this is not the only Jake book, and I would highly recommend these. So let's see. Beautiful pictures. Cover up my face. Huh, there you go. All right, so I love picture books, and there are so many to choose from. So I'll give it a second here. I'm going to recap a little bit about the anthology I talked to you guys about earlier. If anyone has any questions about book recommendations or about the anthology, go ahead and ask. And if not, like I said, if you're watching this later, ask away in the comments and I will definitely answer you. So the Crux Anthology is coming on November 26th. I'll be sharing links when they are up and running so that you can order those. You can get ebook, you can get print, and I'm super excited. 16 writers from around the world writing sci-fi and fantasy short stories. So thank you guys for joining me tonight, and I hope you have a great November, a great Thanksgiving, and I'll see you guys in December.